Alright, it seems the boss is dead. We're just gonna go ahead and distribute the loot here.
Alright, Woodcraft, I'm hoping for some tears now.
There's no loot. I repeat, there is no
So
loot.
want some loot, huh?
Yeah.
Want some loot?
Yeah.
Maybe you're gonna have to wait till next week. No loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot, no loot. No loot Sundays.
Welcome to No Loot Sundays. I am one of your hosts, Braille. Here with me tonight is a very, very special guest. But first, we've all been asking what has happened to Faye. What has been going on with Faye? Is he dead? What happened? So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the results. Faye is alive, and he is here. Say hi, Faye.
Howdy. How's
Yeah!
everyone doing tonight? I am alive.
Crummy mic and
I'm
all.
running from a laptop with a crummy mic tonight because I can't run my power since we've got some big house issues going on right now.
Yeah, it's no fun. But to introduce our other guest, because tonight we are privileged to have the amazing, the other adjective to describe our boy Strimpel. Strimpel's in the house.
Hello.
Hi, Strimpel.
Hello, everyone.
How are you tonight, Strimp?
I'm all right. I'm a little intoxicated, so.
There you go.
You and me both, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the dream. The dream is being lived here tonight. So, Strimple, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name's Strimpel. I play an orc shaman on Rumors to Court. I've been playing WoW since Wrath. I mainly focus on the PvP side of things, but I have been raiding a little bit as of late. And yeah, that's about it.
Since Wrath. Do you guys remember the term Wrath babies and how that used to be a thing? It's like,
You're saying that we actually have a raft baby in the guild?
No,
Okay. We haven't hazed him in any way.
yeah, I know, right? Man, I tell you what, though, it's funny to me, like, to think about, like, I heard that term used not too long ago. It was a person talking about their WoW career. He's like, yes, I'm a Wrath baby. Ooh. It's like, okay, that's a difference of 4 years and what is now 13 years. Like, that's not a big deal anymore. But, yep. So, for everybody else here, we got a little bit of news going on because I had a big old dev interview earlier this week. Our boy Ian Hazakasta sat down with Lore in what could only be described as snarky. Quite a bit of a snarky interview that happened this time. A little silliness going on throughout it, but there was a little bit of meat to it. One of them being is that they elaborated on the notion and the truth that in Battle for Azeroth, which I think honestly we could just call barf at this point, they are going to get rid of tier sets. Thank you for the delayed laugh. But they're going to be getting rid of tier sets. What do you guys make of this?
I'm kind of happy about it. Sorry if I'm stepping on your toes, Trimble. But I'm actually excited for it because once he brought forward, maybe not his tone, but I mean, Ian's always snarky, and a lot of these questions are probably things that he's already been asked millions of times and is tired of answering. But I agree that like it sucks having ags full of 935 gear or 950 gear from Titan Forging from Mythic Plus, and I can't wear it because tier sets get in the way or legendaries get in the way. And it's what's really sucked for me as Windwalker is I've got some legendaries I really want to wear right now, and I still have to wear tier 19 and tier 20 stuff. So I can't wear chest pieces or helmet pieces because I have to use tier set. Yeah. So also the effects for the tier bonuses have been just kind of like stat changes, nothing interesting. I mean, we had some interesting sets in Nighthold, but it feels like they're running out of ideas on like what to do for like, okay, we're adding this cool new effect to it. It's like, no, we're just going to boost your stats. Oh, you've got a higher percent chance to crit. Oh, it leaves a hot stuff that could be just rolled into this new I guess, artifact system, for lack of a better term. Azerite system, I guess, is their official name for it, but it's Artifacts 2.0.
Yeah, of course.
Much better, but still.
What do you think,
good
Strip?
things about Legion.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Faye on this one. I'm actually happy that tier sets are going to go. I think when he was making the point of it, Ian said that tier sets used to be this really cool thing they got that took several months to build up to finally get a full set. Now, you can get a full set in the first week if you're lucky enough, with bonus rolls, with extra stuff like time walking, the chest you get there, Mythic Dungeon event, there's chests you get there. It's really quick to get the tier set, and it mostly just becomes everyone usually gets it within the first month. So, assuming everyone gets it, who raids, everyone has it, all it becomes then is, which combination of gear does the most damage for me? Which isn't really that exciting anymore, because like Faye said, you can have a bunch of upgrades in your bags, and you don't have any way to use them because you're stuck using your tier set. Me, myself, I'm item level 939 right now, and my 2 lowest pieces are my set 2. Because I have 2 940s that can replace my set 2, but since my set 2, like Faye said, is super boring, I use a button, I get 5% crit, that's better than 20 item levels, so it's better for me. So I'm stuck with that 2 915 pieces for no reason other than it gives me 5% crit when I press one button. It's not that exciting, and I'm happy to see it go.
Yeah, it's, in my opinion, I kind of agree with both of you. The issue, I really I sit down, think about it logically. The only real issue I have with them removing tier sets is I liked the class themed sets, but that doesn't mean they can't make class themed armor, and I'm sure at several points in the future they will. The other thing is the nostalgia factor of it all is, you raid and you get the tier sets. There's a lot of people that are speculating about whether or not this is going to impact the number of people raiding. I don't think it will, honestly, because in the end, we raid for gear, we're still getting gear. Tier sets are kind of being replaced by the Azerite system, as Faye mentioned, and it kind of seems like, yeah, we're a little outdated for tier. And going back to just talking about strictly item level and having better gear and everything like that, I am absolutely on board with getting rid of tier sets to be able to give yourself better gear. Like, as you guys know, there are often times whenever I'm like, you know what, just fuck this tier set. Like, I'm going to go for highest item level and live with that, which is what I've done on my tank during Tomb of Sargeras, because Prot Warrior, I don't care for their tier set. That it was just a dumb bonus. And then, so that presents the other problem of that if your tier set is disappointing, then you're disappointed with that raid tier going into it. And that sucks. Like Faye, right now, you're looking at the Monk Windwalker, and from what I've heard from you, is you're kind of disappointed with the way it's all going to set up, because you're going to have to, I believe, still run a 4-2 makeup to get your best DPS, right?
No, it's going to be that I may just run 2-piece alone. I might not even run 4-piece because it's just going to flood me with resources I don't need or can't spend. And even a bigger problem with it is just, what sucks is I'm doing solid DPS right now, but at the same time I feel like I'm on the class. It's the bottom of the barrel. I can't be pulling a lot better numbers if I just switch and get a class that has a good tier bonus that's actually going to bring up my DPS rather than counting on bad scaling, which is what monks have.
Yeah. I think I'd like to add on that is one of the things I saw when my Tomb tier set was bad, I was actually a little bit happy, because it meant that I don't have to keep doing Tomb when the next raid comes out. Because if my 2-piece or 4-piece were good when the next raid come out, I would have to keep trying to get Titan Forges to use that 2 set. I had
that's with me and Nighthold right now, because I still should go back into
exactly. And I don't think that's a design feature you ever want in a game, to have to do old content hoping to get a Titan Forge. And I know we're going to go into Titan Forge later. That's a whole different story.
We can lead into it here. This seems like a good segue.
This seems like a good point.
If we watched walk naturally into a segue, I'm not against it.
It's not fun to be stuck to pieces of gear just because they have an artificial bonus that doesn't really add to your class fantasy a whole bunch,
Mm-hmm.
Like, my 2-piece that I'm holding on to now is 5% more crit, like I mentioned, and the 2-piece that I held on to, I would say through the majority of Tomb, was 10% more damage on Storm Strike. Just a flat damage buff, that's all it did. It didn't affect the rotation or anything at all. So, yeah.
Looking at this, it definitely does kind of, and this is going to be kind of a really dumb metaphor to use, but it does kind of feel like a Goldilocks situation, right? So, before Legion, before we started getting into all of these extra benefits we get from legendaries and even from our artifact weapons and everything, we generally just had our tier sets, and that was our set bonuses. And in some places, for some classes, it definitely felt like, it just wasn't enough. You weren't able to do enough healing. You weren't able to do enough damage. You weren't able to take enough damage in comparison to other classes. Now, to remedy that, they overhauled us with shit to put onto all of our characters in Legion. And yes, this was evenly spread, but when I look at something like what Protection Warriors have with the Manacles of Manaroth against some things that your Demon Hunter tanks have, and even your Feral Druid, Guardian Druid has for tanking, Manacles seem like a much higher tuned piece of gear than mostly anything they have, and it's
practically mandatory.
Right. Absolutely. And it's well designed for the warrior. And, that it's super important now because now we know warriors are garbage for this expansion. Whereas at the beginning of the expansion, we didn't know that.
They were gods at the beginning of the expansion.
When Ignore Pain was so good.
And it was needed because it was like you could run anything without a healer. Practically, it's like fuck it, we don't need a healer.
I loved being the big boy. Don't get me wrong, But now, we end up in this situation where, God, we have so much just ridiculously overpowered gear, also attributing to the power creep and everything, that it's too much to me at this point. Legendaries are too much. Artifact weapons are in the right direction, but kind of still a little overkill. And I think going into Battle for Azeroth, we're going to be scaling it back quite a bit to try to normalize it a little bit. And I think to do this, if you have something that you have a singular item like for Azerite, where you get these different talent traits or these different abilities, whatever, that you can keep pumping, fuel into essentially. And then you take that and, sorry, I just had a brain fart and I'm trying to recover. So you take the Azerite, and that's going to give you your set abilities throughout the entire expansion, and these aren't going to change. This is going to be...
Well, to be fair, each piece of gear will have a set of abilities that will not change, but you can change out those abilities based on different pieces of gear you get.
Yes, absolutely. So, for example, and I believe it's also spec dependent. So, essentially, your item is going to stay the same level, and it will match your stats per spec, and then when you switch specs, you have a different set of essentially traits you get to pick for that spec, and you never have to worry about leveling up a different item like you did with artifact weapons, but you still get to get the benefit of the level. So what's
cool to me is that all this leveling is only on that neck piece, right. So you can still be going after drops in those slots, the helm, the shoulders, and the chest. Those will still drop from different sources. If this is something that I heard from BlizzCon, it wasn't confirmed in this interview, but it was those slots cannot Titanforge. So
right.
Okay, you got since we said they're switching item levels, let's say the raid drops 150 at LFR level, 160 at normal, and 175 at heroic, and then 185 at or 190 at mythic, then you can guarantee that I'm getting a 190 if I go into mythic and kill this boss and get this piece.
Right. And what Bray mentioned earlier is if the removal of tier sets might stop raiding participation a little bit, because obviously, the Mythic Plus system is going to be continued, so there is a way to get that high-end gear without going into raids. But I think with the option of those pieces, and those pieces having specific sets tied to specific items, you'll still want to run a raid to get those items the same way you would want to get a tier piece. So
another thing that I think is going to keep people wanting to raid, and I hope this is the case, since they said, okay, we're not doing specific tier armor, but they did say that we'll be doing, okay, there's a plate tier armor, there's a cloth tier armor, like not armor from the raid that is styled after the raid. I hope that means they're going to take all the budget they had for all the classes in the game and pour those resources into the plate, the cloth, the leather, and the mail, and so you have really solid looking gear. At least the same level of quality that we're getting from current raid gear, if not better. And to be honest, I mean, a lot of the tier gear that we've seen from Tomb and Nighthold a little bit was just reskins of like classic tier gear, recolored and reskinned. Yeah, like better models, higher poly, all that fun stuff, but not anything new.
It kind of makes me worry that they were kind of like, as far as the class fantasy idea of gear goes, they were kind of running a little dry on ideas. Because I mean, if you think about it, it's been 13 years that they have been, repeatedly raid after raid after raid after raid after raid implementing class-based sets, that are supposed to reflect the class at that time. And yeah, I could definitely see them starting I could see the well starting to run dry, but
Hey, and sometimes just taking a break is what is needed to make sure that you can like build up that thing again. Like maybe you get to see what new players do with the class, or what how people fit the role, and then you can kind of come back, circle back around to the next expansion. Maybe even within the expansion, you start releasing some like specific gear from different things. Maybe even they haven't mentioned anything about PvP gear at all, so there's a chance that PvP will still be. Like have slight tweaks for classes. I doubt it, but hey, anything's possible.
So I'm gonna ask you guys a question here then, because of what you just said. Take it or leave it. Y'all know the rules of take it or leave it. If you agree with the notion, you take it. If you disagree, you leave it. Take it or leave it. We see a tier set before the end of Battle for Azeroth.
A tier set, as in like just the appearance, or a tier set with the
A
actual
legitimate
set
tier set. Different set for each class.
No,
I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, leave it.
I do think there will be full cosmetic sets for classes, though, and I think if they don't have that, there will be a lot of outrage.
There might be
for multiple reasons. One is because I know you both said there's a lot of tier sets in the game, so there might be running a little dry. Half those tier sets are garbage. I'm not gonna lie. If you go look at hunter tier sets, they're complete garbage. They don't know what they want to do with hunters. They're just
absolutely.
So bad. There's definitely room for improvement. Okay, I've seen them pull shit out of their ass before. If you go back to the first season of WoD, they designed a PvP set for 2K that was exclusive to 2K. It wasn't a recolor like every other season. It was actually a brand new set for 2K gear. I'm actually wearing one right now. And everyone was very outraged about that because the PV years after that season passed, that set was no longer obtainable at all. And big controversy. I won't get into it.
Oh yeah.
But so they designed a full set, 2 sets, that whole tier, just for that, of fully class specific. So I think it's not that hard to do, and I think
I expect we'll see something. If you ran not Tomb, Trial of the Crusader, or not Trial of the Crusader. What was the one with
Halls of Valor?
Right.
Halls of Valor. Trial of Valor is the one I'm thinking. If you run TOV, at the end of it, when you complete it, you get. I think either if you complete enough times, you get to a
cosmetic
set. So I expect something like that, possibly at the end of a tier.
You know what was fun about that was that you had. That was also based on difficulty.
Heroic and you guys didn't?
Right, fuck you. No, that was based on difficulty as well, and I agree, we could definitely see something like that. And I do want to say, for what Trial of Valor was, being the 3-boss raid that came out just to fill in a gap between the wait between Emerald Nightmare and Nighthold, and the boss fights were, I mean, let's be real, the boss fights were kind of shit in that raid.
Oh, I thought
I liked Odin. I didn't care for Gorm or Helya at all, personally.
Oh, I loved Helya. To be honest, we ran heroic. No, we ran normal. One time.
Yeah, we didn't even bother with heroic on that.
Because there was no point in the gear. But I ended up, at the time, I was dual raiding with Fallen Warriors in another guild, and I came in as a healer, and that a group of ex-Mythic Raiders, it was surprisingly fun to see the organization. We kind of had a chaotic raiding method back then with Fallen Warriors.
We were underdeveloped for sure.
Kind of just like, no, don't look at the dungeons. Yeah, just pull the boss. We'll figure this out as we go.
Figure it out. Yeah. By the way, that's the strat for Antorus. Heads up. No, but
I like that strat. It's fun learning it. I'm not gonna not look at the guide. I've already looked at the guide last week. But I do like the idea of going in kind of blind and kind of figuring stuff out. As long as there's no like one shot. Like there are 2 difficulties. There's like, holy shit, this is hard, and that's bullshit. Holy shit, this is hard. That's bullshit, because that's bullshit. Is like, oh, you're just dead because one guy 10 minutes into the fight, one guy screwed up, everyone's dead.
Yeah, it's a good thing we haven't had a boss like that in a while. Kill Jaden. But what I like, I really like.
Right?
Sorry, what was that?
We were trying to segue into Titan Forging a second ago, and then we kind of got off that rabbit trail.
But I just wanted to say I liked that at Trial of Valor, they threw in the cosmetic rewards to make that raid interesting, because it wasn't tier, and it was barely higher item level than what you have. I think it was maybe only 5 item levels higher, which you could easily get Titan Forged above. In Emerald Nightmare, you have more chances at it, etc. And I like that they incentivized it with some cosmetic rewards at the end, and I'm not against seeing that. As long as there's still adequate gear drops in a raid. If you're going to do a filler raid like that, I feel like that's an excellent way to do it. Is to be like, okay, it's a filler raid, cosmetic rewards at the end. But yes, as you were saying, now that we've just completely destroyed our chance of having a good segue into it, Titan Forging is something I wanted to bring up because this was talked about lightly at the dev interview. Basically, they got a question about Titan Forging, and Lore brought up throughout this questioning a good point that was, have you ever considered not letting Titan Forging, and essentially to put it in easier terms than Lore did, essentially, have you ever considered not letting Heroic Gear Titan Forge up to Mythic raid item level? And Ian kind of just dodged it. He gave an answer, but it was a very, Lore, what the fuck kind of, we're not getting into this answer. To what he says is that essentially he wants there to be, that level of surprise and blah, blah, blah. To which I say, what the fuck? And also, before we get into this, I just want to put the actual news out there. That was the way Titan Forging is going to work in BFA is that it's going to have a much lower proc rate so that it becomes, and this is to deter people from farming earlier raids or whatever to try to get Titan Forged gear, because Lord knows the first half of this expansion wasn't people running Maw of Souls over and over and over and over and over just to get some fucking AP. Have we learned nothing?
Well,
see, okay, so I've thought about this a lot. I watched it. I heard what was said. I've kind of thought about both sides. It's all independent on how low they're lowering this chance, because I'm assuming they're lowering the chance for. So if they lower the chance for it to Warforge, it's going to, and on each tier above that, Warforge is plenty. But I'm hoping that we see fewer and fewer Titan Forges. If they get those percentage chance rates of the old feel, like back in Black Temple of, oh look, I just got next level like Titan Forge piece of gear that's like a 1% chance to drop. This is amazing, and you get that feeling of, oh, I have a legendary. Having it be like, oh, I've got to farm this. If the chance is low enough to where you're restricting, like they say their goal is, and whether this works out being case or not, it prevents people from like, okay, we should really go back and farm first raid because it's got good gear, it's got things that got the traits we want on them, and say no, let's just push into the new content and keep going. It sounded like you were about to say Strimpel. Hand it up to you.
Well, okay. One thing I'd like to say is we all know the WoW community here, and if anything has a even like 1% chance of dropping, people are going to do it.
Yep.
Okay, so they can say, we're reducing the chance a lot. So, running Nighthold for this one trinket to maybe Titan Forge 50 item levels is pointless. People are still going to do it.
Yep.
That's the thing. You can weigh it yourself, and you could be the judge. Oh, that's probably not a good enough chance. I don't want to do that. I'm probably not going to get it. But, if you're bored, you have nothing else to do, you're fully geared out, you just need one little upgrade, you're going to run that raid again and just see if you can get it. So I think not putting a cap on it is kind of like saying, we want people to keep playing our game, and we want you to keep running that old stuff just in case you can. Because the downside of putting a cap on something is, let's say you run a raid, you get a trinket, it warforges to the highest it can go, if there's a cap, so 10 item levels, and then you're done. You don't need to run that raid anymore, because the only upgrade you can get from that trinket is the mythic version.
Well,
I think they're trying to avoid that because they want you to keep
Yeah.
running that content. That's the only.
Or
other
you're going to kill
reason.
raid teams otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's
So sorry. I like Titan Forging. It is exciting to get really lucky and get a nice drop that's 15 item levels higher than you expected, but I definitely think there should be a cap on it so you don't have to do the same thing over and over and over, because you don't have to, but in WoW
Yeah.
people do. They definitely do.
Like I will agree there needs to be a cap. I don't disagree with them saying that the cap shouldn't be mythic gear. Like, I'd be fine with it being base level mythic. And like, the thing is, you'll continue to get even better to the point where the stuff in your next tier is lower item level. That's when it becomes a problem.
I agree. I agree with that sentiment, Phase, that, it needs to me, there needs to be a hard cap at least between tiers. I don't know. For some reason, with Blizzard, it's always been this matter of, to incentivize this, we're going to give you more. We're going to give you epics in normal dungeons now. We're going to give you, Titan Forging, War Forging, etc. And I think that if you're like, and they hide behind the, oh, we're trying to make sure there's still that aspect of surprise where, if you get a really good Titan Forge, it's something you can get excited about and whatnot. It's not exciting to me, honestly. Like, it's to me, it's become so much of a game of math that it is not exciting at all whenever I get a Titan Forge proc, because it's like, oh, I got an upgrade. Okay, like, cool. But it's good, and it makes me better as better geared anyways. But it's also one of the things Ian said is that one of the we don't really run into the problem of somebody who only rates heroic outgearing somebody who rates mythic. I beg to differ, and I seriously beg to differ, because as a heroic only raider doing my mythic 10s, mythic 15s every week, I was able to maintain the top warrior spot on a server as only heroic rating. And there are mythic
you're
guilds.
not just heroic rating.
Well,
You're also running mythic plus significantly.
yes, but the mythic raiders are too. And my thing is just throughout with all of this, to me it feels like reducing the proc rate might fix that problem. It might, because you're like, let's say if you were to get let's say if you could look at all of the drops and get it down to a finite number where say right now during each raid tier, on average you're only seeing about 14 Titan Forges and 32 War Forges per character throughout an entire raid tier, right? From the launch of Tomb of Sargeras to launch of Antorus, you're only seeing that many of those. Whereas in the next one, in the next expansion, and they reduce that rate, maybe it'll go down to you only see about 4 Titan Forges and maybe 8 War Forges, right? That is a significant difference, because even if you get a Titan Forge, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a direct upgrade. But something that, it is a double-edged sword, which Lore would laugh at, as we saw before. It is a double-edged sword, because for me specifically, I know there's other people that have encountered this, and probably you as well, Strimpel. At the beginning of normal Tomb, I got a trinket that was 945 off of Kill Jaden when we downed him. And I still use that trinket to this day. And it's frustrating because we went to Heroic and it's like, I'm doing harder content and I'm not getting rewarded for it. And this isn't the argument of heroic raiders getting the same out of it as mythic raiders do. This is the argument as one player is losing a reason to go to do harder content because they can't get an upgrade for that spot. So to me, Titan Forging is just it's an unnecessary system in my opinion. And it's really the raid drops. You can either make bosses drop less, which Blizzard will never do, or you could make it so that the way loot is dispersed is adjusted so that, I mean, it all comes down to making bosses drop less, but making it so that players who get loot on a certain set of bosses get locked out for that set of bosses, and which would it would all be frustrating, yes. But my thing is this would make gear drops more rewarding. And to me, that is the answer, as opposed to like, let's just give them higher item levels. Let's just give them better gear randomly, and they'll be happy with it.
There's one other solution, which will never happen, but it would be interesting to see, which is, you've got a 930, you've got a 915 piece of this gear. Congratulations, you just had it drop again for you, and you just start increasing it slowly. So you can progress, and you can still progress in heroic.
It's kind of like with loot. Oh, sorry.
Like versus you could progress, like you could have it creep, but not jump, and that's what the problem, or that's what Titan Forging is. It's not a slow creep up of I got Warforged this time, next time I'll get Titan Forged. No, it's like you got lucky, you won the lottery.
Yeah.
And to be honest, getting a 940 off a normal boss is like winning the lottery. I used to have, like, there was a simulated statistics thing. It's like you're starting to get up into very low percentages when you get that many procs in a row. That's kind of what his point was when he did mention, like, we're not putting a hard cap on it, but there is still like a effective cap because you're approaching a limit of infinity, of where it's such a infinitesimally small chance to get it that if you get it, you really did retake it now because you just won the lottery.
Yeah. That's
not the case currently, but it sounds like that's what the intent is for the case in the future.
I hope that I'm wrong and they're right. That next expansion, I look at it, I'm like, you know what, Titan Forging hasn't been a huge factor for me, and it's not that I don't want Titan Forged gear, because, of course you do, but I'm hoping that it's more of like, this seems like I care more about going on to the harder content to get better gear than I do about running the same content as much as I can to get better gear.
I don't know.
Yeah. But moving on to, we're going to go ahead and get off the subject of Titan Forging unless anybody else has anything they want to say. And we're going to move on to another news announcement they made, because we're trying to get through the news to PvP here during the episode. So, at BlizzCon, one of our lovely announcer guys, whose name I can't remember, said that they are looking at making it so that Darkspear trolls and orcs can get their postures adjusted. Ian clarified in the dev interview that they really are only wanting to do that for orcs because Thrall kind of set the standard for that. And never mind the fact that we have seen trolls with upright postures since vanilla. Thrall set the standard for orcs, and that's what matters. But to his credit, we are getting Zandalari trolls, and there needs to be something appealing about Zandalari trolls, and the upright posture might be it. They have a bit of skin flakiness and some more bulk.
They got some bad eczema.
Yeah. They got some terrible eczema going on. They got the shale skin, I think I've seen someone call it. But to me, I am not upset about this. I don't know about you two.
Yeah, I actually have some good feelings on this. I completely agree with this direction. I think if you want an upright troll, you go with a Zandalari troll. And upright troll models weren't really in the game until Throne of Thunder, when they introduced the new Zandalari model, and they were upright trolls, and everyone was like, ooh, I want to look like that.
Yep.
As for orcs, there were never a reason orcs should not be upright. It was just kind of the way they were designed in vanilla. In Warcraft 3, they were upright. Thrall, upright. Garrosh, upright. And we can all agree that they looked way cooler when they were upright. Trolls at least have lore reasons for being upright. As you see, the trolls' idle animation, they crouch down to talk to... Because they're taller than Tauren and all that stuff. They're the tallest Horde race. Technically, they're standing straight up. They actually have reasons to crouch down. And there's never been an upright troll model in the game until Mist of Pandaria in the Throne of Thunder raid, like I said. So they're going to have the option to be an upright troll if you still want to be it. It's just a different race. Whereas Darkspear, I think if you had the option for Darkspear to be upright, what you would have is a slightly less cool looking Zandalari troll, if I'm being honest.
That's
because
true.
You have 2 expansions of visual updates in WoW put into the Zandalari troll while the Darkspear.
Models, though, in
Yeah,
Warlords
I guess 1 expansion then. 1 expansion further of advancement, because it is an updated model. But I just think a Darkspear troll standing upright would look weird, because the Zandalari troll, it's not just like you take a Darkspear troll, you added some like acne problems and straighten out his back. It's a different model. Like,
They also took steroids.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with this, and if you're a Darkspear troll who wants to stand up, I'm sorry, but just become a Zandalari troll and RP as a Darkspear. It won't be that hard. Just putting that out there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like they were hinting at like Darkspear trolls definite no.
Right.
And I think it's because of those lore reasons. They did some other questions were about undead and this, and like they're not thinking about it right now, but they didn't give it as hard of a no as with the other.
Yeah.
So who knows? It may still be on the table for other classes.
Undead's a completely different subject, because I think what people appreciate in Undead is toggling on and off the bones. Because I actually saw a Reddit thread where they hacked the client to get the Chinese model because
the Chinese model can't show bones.
Exactly, because Chinese hate bones.
It's something with their culture. So you can get those same MPQ. Well, it's not MPQ, it's CASI anymore. Anyway, you can get those files and import them into your game and effectively run the Chinese client, and you'll get those undead models. You also get some other weird stuff like you can't see skeletons on the ground. They're like bowls of bread or something weird like that.
Everything turns into bread, yeah.
Yeah, everything that's represents death. To me, my thing is that I like having more customization. This doesn't really fall under that, honestly, though. As far as Zandalari's losing or getting the hunch taken out of him. I'm sorry, Darkspear. To me, this makes Zandalari's more appealing. To be able to have an upright troll, a good-looking upright troll, because of the lankiness. That's my thing, is with the Darkspear trolls, because of how lanky they are, it's gonna look weird. It's gonna look weird as hell.
You can have an upright Darkspear troll, by the way. Just choose female.
There you go. And that's the solution to the problem, everybody.
But yeah, it would look like an off-brand Zandalari troll is what it would look like. It would look bad. I don't think people can picture it correctly.
Yeah, I agree.
Update the skin for that little toenail on the heel of the trolls, please. It looks awful. It's like the lowest.
Or just let them wear boots.
Dude, it's really
part
bad.
of it.
Why can't they wear boots? I don't get why they can't.
Give me a heel cover at least, so I don't have to scare that thing.
It's
one other.
I'm gonna put up a video of the races, the allied races here on Twitch for people to see here, so you can see what toenail on the back of. Look at the back of the heel of the Zandalari trolls when they come around, and you'll be able to see the toenail on the heel that Faye is talking about if you haven't seen it before. But yeah, you'll never be able to unsee it, by the way.
I wonder if it gives them more balance, like a tail or something,
Well, I assume it's like a dog where they've got that weird toe halfway up their leg, their lower leg. If you if you got a dog, go pick it up and see that little weird toe thing.
It's so gross. I hate that you show fucking 12 years of playing this game and I never noticed it. I hate that you pointed it out to me because I can't unsee it, and now I haven't played a troll in a long time.
Well, I was messing around with the models in Blender when I first saw it, and I was like, oh, I can never play troll again.
Yeah, you can barely see it. It looks like a bright spot in the Allied Races video, but I'll go around one more time. Yeah, so to me, I like I've only been looking forward to having upright orcs. I don't care about trolls. The Zandalaris look cool. I plan on playing one, but that's more than just them being able to stand straight. It has to do with the way that model is built that I like it as much as I do. I'm glad that they're not backing down on the orcs though, because I feel like that's something that would really it would just look nice. It would look really nice to have a tall, proud standing orc.
It makes no sense why they're hunched in the first place. I don't know how it happened, and I don't know.
I think it's because they probably built it off the peons, because even the peons were kind of hunched in correctly.
Right.
And so they kind of built the model of the player character off peons, and then they're like, fuck it, give all orcs the same posture because we're lazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you looked at them, and I get, to me, when you looked at them in Warcraft 3 and then you looked at them in WoW, I think they looked very similar between the grunts that you see in Orgrimmar and the grunts you saw in Warcraft 3, because you have that very broad shoulders with the head almost directly in the middle but still protruding in front of them. And that's because it gives it more definition from a top-down view. But in, MMO, where you're right in front of them and you can see the full of them, it's very unnecessary. So I think that's why they did it, is to try to make it as much to the likeness of Warcraft 3 as they could. And
It's just lazy.
I think they probably made an upright orc model when they were first creating the game, and they looked at it and they were like, if you put full plate armor on this in a human, you can't tell. It's hard to tell the difference, so we need something to make them distinct. Yeah. And people have been arguing that even today with, orcs shouldn't be upright, they'll just look like buff human. Well, first of all, I mean, they're green. They have tusks. There's different
they'd be closer to being a tall dwarf because of the broadness. I don't think the models are that broad yet.
And it's not like they're just forcing every orc to be upright. You can toggle it. It's an option. So if you really like having a fucked up back, that's good for you. You can still.
So is your thing? We got your solution here.
I want fat humans.
They have a fat human model.
I know. I want to be able to play as a fat human. But
that's the thing. Whenever you make like a human, like a mage or a warlock who's like a really old dude and he's just buff as hell, it's like,
dude, I want to
hear
Divinity, man. That was my jam in Divinity and Dark Souls.
Yeah,
make an old dude.
When are we gonna get the paunch for cosmetic? When are we gonna get the paunch? Just you can add a paunch to any of your classes, like a night elf with a paunch. That'd be great. This is a fat night elf running around. That'd be awesome. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on to this. I think we got two more things.
One big correction from last week. We said that Aman'Thul's Vision, the legendary trinket, drops from the final boss. They said, talking about data mining and being able to hide stuff and maybe able to make stuff surprising. Like, they'd love to be able to put stuff in the game that you don't know where it comes from. So stuff, it says, Aman'Thul's Vision drops from the final boss of Antorus. But they kind of said, no, you'll find out how you get it. It's so I don't know
exactly.
It's not a drop.
See,
I mean, I watched that part today, and that's how it seemed to come across to me. Is like they're saying from the final boss, you'll find out how you get it later.
So that wasn't exactly what it was, because
they were kind of saying the question was whether or not it'll be personal loot, or if it's master loot.
Or if you can master loot it out, yes.
And the way he answered the question was kind of walking around the item it's not really a drop. I'm guessing it's going to be something like it's a drop that's a quest item.
That's very possible. I don't now. This bothered me. Like, the way Ian randomly takes this stance against, not everything you don't need to know everything going into it. Like, okay, I get it. You don't want to answer the question. That's obvious. I understand that you don't want to directly answer this question and give away anything, because this may be more than what you've been able to let on through the Dungeon Finder and even through data mining. But to take this kind of a stance against it, to say, like pointing at data mining and being like, we don't need to be doing this for everything. Like, shut up. This is the dumbest thing to take that stance against it with. I get that your butt hurt. We found out about Silithus. I get it. But this is, you can get upset about it regarding Silithus and say, guys, this is kind of getting out of hand. We do want to give you some surprises, especially when it comes to lore and storytelling. But to be like, you don't need to know whether or not it's master loot or if it's personal loot, something completely trivial.
Supports my theory. Because if you, when I was looking at Dungeon Guide last week and looking through the loot of that boss, Aman'Thul's Vision is not on his loot table, as according to the Dungeon Finder Guide. If you go to Legendaries and mouse, it'll show up in Legendaries. If you mouse over it there, it says it drops from him.
Gonna make me boot up WoW right now to check.
This is confusing.
It is weird, because like I was looking through the loot table last week and it wasn't there in the game. It's just been data mined. Then I jumped over to Legendaries and it is there, and I was like, well, okay, so does it drop from it or not? So So here's there is a problem with data mining from the perspective of a developer. The mount and like you get those mount riddles. Some of the clues for those mount riddles, like really cool little quest things that come out, and to solve, and people solve them in a week because some of the hints are in the data mining. It makes it hard to be able to give any form of surprise to people if they know what they can get ahead of time. And I get that. Like if I were making a game and I wanted to go into this blind and have to learn, or you can actually get excited about loot. It's hard to get excited about loot if I can pull up a table and be like, I got this guy's got nothing I want.
Yeah.
In the old days we had add-ons where we'd have to pull all the data from Thoughtbot and Wowhead and all that stuff, and now it's in the game. I get where he's coming from. He could have come across a bit more diplomatically, but I don't know. I can understand where you come from on that stuff, because if you want, data, like you can find hide stuff in the data the PTR now, but the only other solution would be like the only time you can data mine is when it's about to go live. No more PTR. We're doing internal beta only for raid tuning, but it would solve the problem.
I have the thought that it might possibly be pretty easy to get, because if we look at what it is, it's basically an Arcano crystal on steroids.
Oh yeah, there was a
have...
great guide about it today showing that a 2% upgrade for most people. In fact, like there's something that's saying like 75% of your raid will prefer a 1000 level of the other trinket.
Right, and they probably got so much crap the entire expansion about Arcano Crystal and how broken it is for some specs and how they looted it on the first time where the gym came up and haven't replaced it since. So maybe they don't want to reveal it just because it's just like you complete the raid once and everyone gets it. I don't know how they want to handle it. But
they could tie it to the kind of like with it. You kill Maiden 4 times and you unlock the rest spot. It might be something to tie to that even. Like,
right.
There you go. Have it.
I don't know. It's tough to say.
It sounds like there's a mystery afoot.
It's confirmed it doesn't count as a legendary, right? You can wear that
right.
and
it is a separate.
Yeah, so that's that's tough.
And we are getting a quest legendary as well.
Right, the ring,
the empowering ring, for the Netherlight Crucible ring.
Wait, what?
So,
we're getting a 4th legendary?
No. This legendary is a Legion legendary. It is one of your 2. It's
okay.
There's a quest to get it. It's the one for the Netherlight Crucible.
Okay.
It'll power your Crucible effects. So.
I was about to say, holy shit, that is ridiculous power creep. Good lord, it's already bad enough. Alright, well, so we got a mystery going on with the trinket. One thing that's important to mention here is the new Battleground is not likely coming out with 7.3.5, the Battle in Silithus or whatever. It's not coming out with 7.3.5, according to Ian. It is something they're looking at doing further down the line. So
what did he say?
Well, the wait continues.
They're bringing in the Scaling World 735, the post-Antora story supposed to come in, and a preview of the Battleground. Yep. So whatever that means.
Well, I mean, if it's something fun to do, it's something fun to do. Hopefully, it's that,
I mean, to be honest, with the way they presented it at BlizzCon, having it released
seems pretty on the fly.
It's like, okay, the whole point of this Battleground is to be fighting over this Azerite. There's no Azerite, or there is Azerite, but you don't know why you need it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be something like they'll have a brawl, which is this. They did this stuff with Hearthstone, introduced new mechanics, and maybe they'll do a brawl of that Battleground 1 week.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, just like a little brawl or a 2 to 3 day event sort of thing over a weekend.
I've been loving the brawls. One of my favorites they've had.
We'll get into that. Yeah, brawls are great.
Yeah, we will. There was one thing I didn't talk to you guys about in the pre-show that I remembered while we were talking that I wanted to bring up. So via Blue Posts and via, I believe, a BlizzCon dev interview, but I can't remember who did it. All I know is that if you want more information about it, Mike Preach of Preach Gaming has a video about it. Where he does a breakdown. So what we're looking at here is a tanking change heading into Battle for Azeroth. Basically, we're going to be taking all of your active mitigation abilities, all of your we're going to be taking those and making those to only affect armor, and it's going to become a game of increasing your armor to reduce the amount of damage you take physically, and then they are apparently just obliterating magic damage mitigation, like spell reflect, spell shield. What the hell is it called for Death Knights?
Anti-magic shield.
There it is.
Shell.
Yeah.
Anti-magic shield.
The one that Guardian Druids have, and
Guardian Druids already got it removed. So
yeah, theirs is already gone. But
they do have a passive still that when you magic damage, the next time you take magic damage of that nature, it is reduced. But
all that's going away, apparently, as it stands going
to affect my Brewmaster Monk, because Stagger is such an interesting mechanic. If they get rid of it, my monk is
Stagger
retired.
is changing. Stagger is changing, and so is Ignore Pain. They are what they're doing.
Mechanic.
Huh?
That like Stagger, it's already gone through some changes, but it's always been this whole delay the damage you take and take it over time, and that's.
Get ready for it to turn into an armor buff.
That.
Yeah.
I'm done.
It does not sound like it to me. It sounds like they're going to be hurting tanks pretty hard here. Ignore Pain is becoming a channeled ability. Essentially a channeled ability. Depending on how much rage you have, you will basically be using Ignore Pain until you run out of rage. So either Prot Warriors are getting a really good rage generation ability, or they're just going to be completely worthless. And then, from what I understand about Stagger, it's becoming an armor buff. They're doing something with Bone Shield that is really nasty, and I can't remember what it is.
Okay, what I'm looking at right now, which is the change that we're getting on the class 4, Anti-Magic Shell goes from 30% magic damage to 8% magic damage.
Huge.
That's not even a thing. Okay. Well,
was something that was there briefly. Bone Shield. It also even this the damage you take from Bone Shield. So it goes from reducing damage you take by 60% by increasing your armor by 10%. Let's see the ones. Demon Spikes was already physical damage. It's just going from reducing physical damage to increasing your armor. So this may actually be something where your armor is going to affect magic as well.
To me, this looks like, hey, sorry, in Legion, we didn't really balance tanks properly at all. We're going to fix that by just streamlining everything. That way, tank should be more equal. And I don't really feel like that's the correct way to go about that.
That's essentially what
this is the change. This is the change to Stagger. You struggle off attacks, delaying 40% of physical damage instead of taking over 10 seconds. Affects magical attacks at 20% effectiveness. So essentially reverting it back to how it was at the beginning.
Okay.
Of the Legion.
So they are not.
Okay,
good.
That's good.
Good. I'm glad I was wrong.
They already ruined Mistreaver, so I don't want them to ruin the uniqueness of Brewmaster too.
I feel like Brewmaster's
like
the only thing that's good about monks right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll just retire a monk and go paladin.
Just shitting all over Faye here. No, it's not that you can't do good damage. I just don't have fun with monk. What's that?
I don't really want to look at the specifics now because they're going to change a lot
That's true.
to the release date. I think we just need to look at the idea of it.
Yeah.
And if we just look at the idea, it's okay, because if we look at the pure heart stats from Legion, Method, I'm pretty sure exclusively used 2 Guardian Druids the entirety of Legion, right?
Yeah, that's not just for the tanking abilities. That a lot of that applies to the fact that Savage Roar, I think it is just insane.
The Savage
Roar.
The damage one. What is it called? Stampeding Roar. Stampeding
Roar. Yeah, Stampeding Roar is just stupid. Let me give everyone in my raid sprint.
Right.
Okay. Mechanics.
Well, see, that's kind of my point too. Is like I don't feel like it was that bad in Legion. Like I feel like they could have just tuned it more instead of just completely getting rid of a lot of uniqueness of the tanks, which feels like what they're trying to do.
So much of the benefits of like the other thing was they were really strong at magic damage and physical. Now they're just same as pretty much any other tank as far as physical damage and magic, or as far as magic damage, and then physical damage is pretty solid still. I'd say a little bit below a warrior.
I think, you see, with the addition of like Mythic Plus, I liked that tanks were unique because with different affixes, you would want a different type of tank to be most effective. It's not like you couldn't have X or Y tank with this fix, otherwise you'd lose, but it would be more incentive, let's say, if you're pugging, if you're a Demon Hunter, if you get Grievous, or whatever it's called, not Grievous, Necrotic, hey, you know, I can kite a lot better than DK, I have 2 leaps, I can run away and let the stacks fall off, as opposed to a DK, who just have to sit there and, you know, take it, and hope the healer can just heal through it.
I do hope that with this, with the hints of what this change is, means that they will tune stuff a bit better to kind of be like, okay, hard-hitting stuff shouldn't be magic damage.
Right, that's what I think too. If they're getting rid of all magic stuff like that, then the bosses shouldn't have like magic abilities. That's not to say like every boss just hits you with a big stick. It means they can still do like cool spell animations. It's just classify it as physical, you know.
Yeah, or instead make like we hinted, maybe armor has some magic mitigation effects.
Right. That would work too. That's probably what they're going to do. Actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. I'm obvious as a tank. I don't like change unless it's obviously good. Ignore pain, beginning of Legion. Like, I don't know. I'm not excited about it. Doesn't excite me to be like, yes, we are going to be looking more at armor, you know, and streamlining it so that all of the tanks are going to be equally as good. You know, it's the same problem with DPS. Like, just let it fluctuate. Which is, I'm fine with sucking on Prot Warrior. I will play my Demon Hunter. Like, whatever.
Right. I mean, it would be great if it worked out that way.
Yeah.
But then you end up having like a class that's never.
That's true.
And usually, or you'll have a class like Monk that at the expansion is really good, and then just starts, or Windwalker that's really good, and then as gear gets better and better, class design starts showing, and they just start getting worse and worse.
Yeah, having to do odd stuff to try to be able to still compete is not a fun way to play the game. That's true.
So
let me
tell you what the class change for Ignore Pain was that was active on the preview at BlizzCon.
Okay.
Ignore Pain, fight through the pain. For the next 4 seconds, causes 60% of the damage taken to reduce your rage instead. So, in other words, it's pure damage mitigation, but you have to pretty much have a full rage bar when you use it.
So it's Prot's gonna play like Fury.
And it's essentially turning your rage into a health pool, is what I'd say.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Personally, I don't like it.
That feels like a definite beta or alpha testing to try and figure out what to do with it.
You know, like I said before, specifics.
It would be kind of a cool, like, oh, the warrior is in rage right now. He's going to use that rage as an inner power to keep himself alive, rather than having just put a shield bubble on me.
But I like it.
Yeah, well.
But speaking of beta and looking at the early ons and stuff, let's talk about the very early on of WoW. And I do want to keep this brief because they did keep it brief during that was a really rough segue. I'm sorry, everybody. But vanilla WoW is what I'm leading up to. Talking about classic servers, basically, and says they understand vanilla is vanilla, and it's going to be vanilla. You know, basically, you know, they've already, from what I understand, they've already confirmed that they are not going to do class balancing. They asked about it, they asked the community about it, got community feedback, and said, you know, okay, we won't do class balancing. But from what I gather from what Ian says, you know, we're not going to talk about vanilla. Obviously, yes, there's not really much to say about it other than, you know, we're working on it. it's not like we're going to be announcing new features like you can say with an expansion or defining new features like not we've all, but many people have already played vanilla, so fucking what are they going to tell you that's news? Nothing. They're going to tell you they're working on it.
Yeah.
So basically to say to me for him to just be like vanilla is vanilla, that's him saying, okay, I get it. He's like, I get it. I get, we want an actual vanilla WoW experience like you had with the first iteration of the game. Shut up, is what he says. And that's fine. That is totally fine. I agree completely. Community needs to chill and just let Blizzard work on it. And when they want our input, they will ask, as they have been doing.
Well, yeah, what's crazy is, like, they asked, saying, like, they threw out the thread. Assassinated the Blue, who put up the initial thread about, hey, let's just have a conversation about what you like, what you didn't like. And the thing is...
What a mistake.
And, like, he was just like, we're just trying to start a conversation. Like,
yes.
Because there's obviously going to be stuff that will change that was not vanilla. Like, going to get fixed. Blizzard's not going to release, like, game-breaking bugs that... Like, if they're going to follow from, like, 1.0 on, you're not going to see the plague that devastated cities. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, those kind of bugs are going to get fixed. The thing that is so funny to me, even within the forums, and even with, like, the polls they've taken from the forums, it's so divided on people want quality of life changes and people want just pure vanilla. And then you got the people who are arguing like, oh, it was really, really hard. And then people are like, it wasn't hard. It was just a time sink. It's just so funny to watch it fragment. At the same time, like, if I were someone who didn't play vanilla initially and had some interest in it from there,
right,
those people would turn me off of it so quickly. It's like, well, okay, so
oh, absolutely.
If you're saying the best thing about vanilla was community, and you're going to be the community, I don't want to be a part of that community. Like if you're going to belittle any person who disagrees with you, want to play with someone who's going to be like, oh, you're using the wrong talents. I'm sorry. Like, because that's the type of attitude you're portraying on the forums when you're saying like, oh no, it's exactly how it was, bugs and all, or it's nothing.
Yeah.
The type of person who's going to go and it's like, oh, you're a mage and you're running hybrid. Oh, you're running arcane vanilla. Oh, you're bad. Go switch to frost fire hybrid because that's the best spec right now, or just pure fire for damage.
I think a big thing to consider when talking about feedback on the forums is when Nostalarius or whatever it's called got shut down, and the community kind of split in two of whether they were for that or not. The people who wanted it to stay weren't really active subscribers of WoW, and the people who wanted it to go were active subscribers of WoW. So to ask for feedback on the forums, you got to keep in mind that most of the people who would play vanilla WoW or try it again aren't on the forums and don't care about.
I'm not talking about the Battle.net forums. I'm talking about MMO Champion, Wowhead, like the ones that you can use if you don't have a WoW account. These are the people who are probably playing Australis, because especially on Wowhead forums and MMO Champion forums, because these people still interact with the game. And there's still information on both those sites for even vanilla stuff. There's archive tools and all that shit. So it's just been crazy to me. Like, yeah, the WoW forums are kind of an echo chamber of whatever opinions popular at the time, but forums are interesting. And hell, even Reddit is just blowing up and falling apart at the seams.
I think to me there's too much heat right now on this whole situation, and I think it'd be smart for Blizzard to kind of let the thought go away a little bit as much as they can, and then ask a question, and then there'll be a huge, oh, Blizzard has a question about the news of the day. Blizzard has a question about what we want to do with Classic WoW, and they start, and everybody's going to be up in an uproar, and the fight resumes, and then let it die down again, and let everybody cool off, and then ask another question, and then the uproar will start again, and like slowly, this builds hype, and so
and based on the current like what news they're putting out, it does sound like vanilla is not. It's probably a bit farther off because it sounds like whatever they're doing, their goal is to integrate with managed files. Like back in vanilla, they used MPQ files to manage all of the game files. Now, then they moved to CASC.
Can you repeat that? Your mic's having some trouble, Faye.
Sorry.
It's all right.
they had MBQ files in vanilla. They moved to CASC. I can't remember if that was Wrath or Kata. And then they recently encrypted the client to where it's even harder to get into those files. So you're going to have to rebuild the game in that file format, or if they release vanilla as it was, congratulations, all the old bots work again.
Yeah. Yeah,
They have to rebuild the game essentially from scratch, or use current models and stuff, which is going to piss people off. So that's a long process. Like I get why everyone's like, oh, just take the old files and put it up. It's like I'm not like into some botters on Astralis. I never played it, but I played other private servers when I was in high school and couldn't afford WoW at the time, and on those servers. And yeah, you can have an active admin team, but there's only so much you can do. When you're talking about a big game like WoW, where it's going to be the official servers, way more upset about bots. I don't see it going well if they use the old stuff.
yeah.
And so, to bring this back around to the whole point I was going to make was, it's going to be a while off. I think they should let it cool down. I think at this point they're just going to be like, well, obviously the community responded poorly. We should just do what we normally do and say, okay, fine, we won't talk to you for a while. Just throw shit at us. And, okay, we'll just keep working. You guys are so divided on what you want and don't want.
Yeah. I'm going to move on unless, Strimple, did you have anything else you wanted to say about vanilla?
Well, you kind of cut out a little there.
Oh, sorry about that. I said I'm going to move on unless, Strimple, do you have anything you wanted to say about vanilla?
No, I'm good. It's not my forte.
Yeah. All right. So, everybody's waited long enough. They've been waiting for a PvP discussion to happen, and so we're going to have one. PvP, let's start with what happened this week. We were talking about earlier how I believe it's the open world that we had some nerfed trinkets as well as 40% damage reduction applied to basically everything, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Basically, they finally admitted that world PvP is a problem, which it is. I don't know if any of you ever got ganked or did a world PvP quest where someone walked up to you. It's basically who can get 3 globals off first, because the person who gets 3 globals off with 940 gear will kill the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well,
so I did it on my 900 rogue. I jumped into, and I actually love doing this. I go to the tower when it's controlled. Any of the towers when it's controlled, and the Alliance will be doing the world quest there. And I'll go on my rogue or my druid as feral and just pop out 3 shot people and disappear again. And
right.
It's ridiculous. And that's not even 940. That's 910, I think.
Yeah. And basically, anytime anyone ever tried to bring up, like this was a problem before, to Halinka, the former WoW lead PvP dev,
He was so good.
he would bring up the point where he said, world PvP is supposed to be random and spontaneous, and, it's supposed to happen like it is. There's not supposed to be any control about it or anything like that. Which is stupid, because what you have then is a disconnect from the world and the instance of PvP. So for those of you who don't know, Legion underwent a huge PvP change at the start of the expansion, where basically gear does not matter anymore in PvP. You zone into a PvP instance, so in this case a battleground, arena, a brawl, anything like that, and your stats are predetermined, so you can't affect your stats by your gear at all, and everybody has the same template, so basically everyone's on a fair playing field.
Yeah, there's a small benefit for loot. It's what your item level determines.
Yeah, so if you every 10 item levels you get, it's 1% more item level. So as long as you're not completely new, like if you're 800, you'll be at a 10% disadvantage. If you're 880, the highest people will be like 950. That's about an 8% disadvantage. It's not as big of a deal as it sounds. It's not 8% all stats.
At that point, play the objective.
Exactly. It's about 100k health is the biggest gap you're going to see, which is really not anything at all. But on that, if you're not in an instance PvP scenario, if your character feels completely different from what it does when you're actually PvPing. So this creates multiple problems. For the first one being tanks in the open world are immortal. They just do as much damage as normal people, but with all the things of a tank, so they just live forever. And if you ever do one of those brawls where it's a free-for-all, like in the Black Cold Arena World Quest, they can pretty much take on 6 people at once.
So one of the weird things
fun.
I find, which is, and this is really odd to me, I've had better world PvP in those zones. For some reason, I feel like people don't die in the 3 globals in that, and that may just be because of the buff you get from killing people, or they don't start dying until they have the high stacks. But it for some reason that place feels good to world PvP compared to some of the other areas I've been in.
The other big thing is there was trinkets and legendaries that had an effect. Like, for an example, there's a Death Knight trinket that if you wait, I'd say 20 seconds or so, your next Chains of Ice will do a ton of damage. Obviously, you know, in a raid situation, you got to look at the stack of the Chains of Ice when it gets to full stack. But in World PvP, you just walk up to somebody, Chains of Ice, it does 6 million damage, and they die immediately. Obviously, an oversight there. People asked, they were like, nope, it's all about the randomness and spontaneousness that is, that's not a word, of World PvP. Something like that, yeah. Of World PvP and how it's supposed to be random. So this week they finally admitted that was a mistake. It's out of control, and they nerfed pretty much all damage by 40% in the open world. They nerfed, they went after it. They actually looked at it and nerfed those specific trinkets and legendaries that are one-shotting, so they don't do that anymore.
Kill Jaden's Burning Wish.
Kill Jaden's. There's one rogue legendary that makes an expand of knives. Stuff like that.
Well, what was also really fun was Kill Jaden's used to be able to use from stealth without breaking out of stealth.
Right.
And that was fun for
There's actually
lasted.
a really funny video of a rogue, an Alliance rogue and Orgrimmar looking at flags like level 20s and just using it without breaking stealth and then just watching them die without ever leaving stealth. And they just stayed in stealth and were just like the perfect assassin.
Oh my god. Do you think... So, they implement this change hot off the announcement that they're going to be putting in a switch that will let you switch between a PvE server and a PvP server out in the open world. Do you think that maybe they're going to try... They're actively now trying to clean up world PvP because they're going to try to make it more relevant?
I think that's the thing.
I think they're gathering data. I think they're actually looking at the numbers of people world PvPing. I think there was something mentioned, like someone... I'm trying to remember where I heard there was something about level scaling also affecting, because we talked about zone scaling, level scaling affecting world PvP. People were like, oh, that's going to suck because some people only world PvP for the ganking. That's true. If that's how you get your rocks up, have fun. But when I fight someone in the open world,
yeah, and
I'm actually really happy with these changes. I did jump and do it with my rogue. It doesn't feel like enough yet, because it went from being like 10 globals to kill someone. To be honest, is kind of arena like when I've done 2s, my monk can kill.
I can get into that a lot, and basically the main problem about PvP in general right now. But on a bigger picture, I think the next expansion is it's Battle for Azeroth. It's supposed to be a big faction war, Horde versus Alliance, so they want World PvP to be a big part of it again. So they couldn't go into it with World PvP being utter trash. A thing I overlooked too that I didn't mention is duels use the non-scaling thing. The duels were basically removed from the game because duels are utter trash.
Well, I mean, I'd still do some duels every now and then, and it's just you agree on the rules of what you can wear and what you can't. Or some people will equip some grays or something, and you duel with just.
But the thing is, it's so different from actually facing off on someone in an instance PvP that matters, that's rated, you know? So it's not really good practice at all, because you get a feel of what to do and when to do it. Not anymore. Because it's completely different once you get it. And to be fair, you can still wargame somebody, but you both need to be in a party of 2, and it's just a big mess. So bringing back duels is going to be nice. But yeah, anyways, they want to fix world PvP. It's clear that they got rid of that. Once Hollandkill left, they got rid of that stupid answer, because every PvP Q&A somebody asked, and you said that every single time, and They're obviously off that mindset now. They want it to be more fair. They want it to be more balanced. So they're going to try to do that. This is a good first step. I think we're going to need more steps in Battle for Azeroth. Obviously, the different realms and stuff is going to be interesting. I don't know how that's going to work yet, but we'll see.
I think the main concern is, especially with us, since we're on a RP server, is how it's going to work. Because there's some stuff that doesn't do cross realm with RP servers. So whether that means it's going to throw you on just the people on the RP server that want to roll PvP, which I don't think there's that many, because I run around flag all the time and never run into anyone.
Right. And one of the things they mentioned is they want to insensitize it. I can't speak
Incentivize.
Yeah, I'm sorry, people. English is my first language and only language, but I do not know how to speak it. And they said it at BlizzCon, and I'm going to say it again. It's a tough thing to balance, because let's say you just do like 20% XP increased if you're on a PvP run. Well, then you have those people who like do algebra in their heads and thinking about, wow, it's just random stuff. Like, okay, if I'm on between 3 and 4 a.m., use this potion, I can do this many quests with this 20% buff from PvP, and I will not get ganked at this time, blah, 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 blah. So it's going to be hard to, like, put a reason to actually go
I don't know, that, to me, that's cool.
While leveling.
Like, that would actually be cool to me. Like, hey, figure out when to play and plays at weird hours. Okay, more power to you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm still going to try and find you at those hours and kill you, but...
it would be cool, but you know people are going to complain.
Oh, yeah, people
because everyone complains about everything. So. Yeah.
And people will complain about it as well. What'll be funny to me is, like, before... So, their canned response is, if you ever put in a ticket, if you're on a PvP realm, and hours. And you could
go
just, like,
really
you
hard
put
there, Faye.
if you're on a PvP realm and you're getting camped, take it in and say, hey, can like you do anything about this? You're like, oh, you're all the PvP realm. Sorry, too bad. So sad.
Right.
It's important to know how
It's
to
like-
get away, though.
But there are times when if you are a level, like back, my worst one was, and I had a higher level of character. I was leveling up a level 20. I got camped by level 60, and his friend. He camped on my corpse. His friend camped at the graveyard. So it was, even if I decided to take Resurrection Sickness, it would kill me. I eventually ended up graveyard. Knew it wouldn't let me res there. I just logged out, logged on my main, and came and fought him. But it was like if I was a brand new, only had that one character on that server, I would just have to log off for 6-7 hours until they got bored.
I think it would be nice.
I think a switch is going to be helpful for there. But at the same time, my point was, if they have people complaining about, oh, good ganked, I turned it on for the more XP, and I still got ganked. It's like, sign up saying, I am willing to be killed. Like, with one of my characters, it was a realm that got merged with a PvP realm, and it was a normal realm, and that just happened. Whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people's want for this change in the first place. Is a lot of people pick their realms based on where their friends are playing or where they originally started out. Because obviously in Legion, it's not vanilla or TBC. We don't just all play one character. All of us have 3, 4, 5 alts, and some of us have max characters of all classes, on one server. So at that point, it would be really expensive to change servers. And if you picked your original server just because your friend was on it, or it had a cool name and you didn't really get it back then, or whatever reason, it's not really that you don't really want to be on a PvP server anymore. You don't really feel you didn't sign up for this. It's just kind of where you're stuck, and you have to spend $150 to correct that mistake. So yeah, I like that change for that reason, because there are a lot of people out there, and those people have been vocal about, I don't want to be on a PvP server, or I want to be on a PvP server. I just made a mistake, and server transfers are too expensive, which we can get into later. But
I think, have either of you ever played PlanetSide 2?
No.
Okay, so PlanetSide 2 has something where it's MMO-esque shooter. Show me where the action is. So, one, I like the idea that if I toggle PvP, it means I am willing to engage in PvP, which means anyone I run into should be willing to engage in PvP as well. Two, if a good way to fix it would be implement something like that. Have a way for me to know where the action is, and I can go track it down and find it. Because there's really no way to do that right now. Like, there's no like, hey, I'm gonna go. Like, hey, I know that storm will attack. Okay, if you're in the general zone and you hear the beeps going off, but you open up the world map and you see, hey, there's a incursion going on right here. I need to go and help. There's a ton of stuff they can do. They've hinted at some stuff, like they've talked about, hey, like this may have been someone else throwing around it, like, hey, if you were recently in PvP combat, you can't mount up for a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can't just like mount up and run away. Or they've talked about how like we've always wanted to do PvP specific things, but we couldn't because of these. If you're on a PvE realm, you're just screwed.
So here's a question I have for you guys. It's with what you just said, Faye, with them talking about implementing certain rules, like the mount rule of like, yeah, you have to wait X amount of time to mount up after you're engaged in PvP combat and exit PvP combat. It looks like they may want, or at least to experiment with a new rule set for world PvP, as opposed to what you've got in Battlegrounds. And my question is for you guys, what do you think would be some good rules to add to world PvP to make it more interesting and to make it a separate form of PvP than what we get in Battlegrounds, outside of there's no objective to world PvP, generally?
Well, I'll start with this first. I think one thing with this switch they can do, and especially with the changes they did recently, they could make it to where, oh, you toggle PvP, also toggling these stat templates for PvP combat.
So much like the
that could be a benefit as well, because hey, if you're wearing crappy gear, well, suddenly you're in a PvP template and you're getting gear for your level. Like, you're getting scaled up to a stat template. Make leveling easier, but you're still dealing with the effect of the world. You're saying something?
Yeah, there's a big question mark right now because they never really addressed it yet. Is if they're going to stick with the stat template idea or not. I
really hope they do, because
this was the only PvP related question in the whole Battle for Azure Q&A to give you an idea of how much people care about PvP. It was, some people missed the customization of the stats you could do with your old PvP gear, because the way it is now, you get the stats you get and you don't get upset. That's what you got. We balance around those stats, because some people like to, let's say back in the day, if you played a hybrid, you could just only stack versatility and just heal for a bunch but not do that much damage. Some people would like to go all crit and do extra burst, but their sustained damage is really low. Things like that. And there has been some outcry of people missing that. There's not much outcry when it comes to PvP stuff in general, because the community's not that big anymore. But so I don't really know what they're going to do. The answer to that question was they're going to look at it and they're going to think about it. We got a little bit of a hint that they're going to add an actual gear vendor instead of the random gear we get now.
There is a gear vendor, right? It just doesn't.
There's a vendor. It gives you a random piece and you use it. It's like a token. And it gives you random stats.
It's like a gives you appearances, which is all I really care about.
Right. He gives like a dauntless token where it's just random stats, but stats don't matter. I think the best solution would be to use the current honor system, the honor town system, and have a tier that's just dedicated to stats. I don't think anybody's mentioned that yet, but you could have an honor town system that's like 3 different stat things, like one with more mastery than haste, one with more haste, blah 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 blah, and then maybe use that. That's kind of rough around the edges, I know, but I think scrapping this all together is a bad idea.
Yeah,
because I think the main, let's not get this out of sight, the main reason they did the stat template was so that they could balance PvE and PvP separately. Because up to this point before Legion, the game was balanced around PvE because, let's face it, 80% of the players play this game for only PvE, and PvP just kind of had to live with the consequences. So one of the big things, I guess, for an example, is Season 3 of WoD, Enhance was extremely underperforming in raids, but Enhance was really good in PvP. So they buffed Enhance by 20% across the board for all its damage, and they didn't have a way back then to stop anything from happening like that in PvP. So what that did is it just made Enhance even more broken, and probably the most broken spec of all of WoD Season 3. Nowadays, we just saw this, I think, a month ago, is they buffed Windwalker because Windwalker was underperforming in PvE, but they also nerfed their set bonus or whatever at the same time. When they did that change, if you scroll down a little further, it said PvP, Windwalker, agility reduced by 20%. So right away, they knew that was going to be a problem, and they changed it. So that's the big plus of templates. Now we can get into like how they're actually using those and how they're not really using them as well as they could, honestly. But
So hard though.
yeah, that's
There's so many
that's
moving parts
subjective.
there.
It's very
And
subjective.
it's all
so.
about percentages of players, and like if you've got like 3 people play class and there's like 20 people in class and only 3 of them are top percentaging, the rest are at the bottom. It's like, do we really need to nerf them? Because
Right.
it's like that 2200, 2400, 2600 bracket might be running into this best in world player, but
So
it's hard because, like you said, the population has shrunk so much. They don't have work with as much as they used to.
exactly. And so I hope they add customization, but I just hope they don't go back to the old system. I hope they keep templates in mind and they're able to keep balancing it differently. And I think our talents have worked out great. There are some problems on our talents, but for the most part, I think it worked out okay. So
Yeah, I agree with, like, there's some the big issue I have with like, I like the stats as they are. It's interesting to think of bringing them, but it would have to be, honestly, it'd have to be kind of minimal, or you have to have like you said, a talent tree, but it would have to be like mastery, like you can choose your secondary stat that you want to focus on for it. Let people actually control exactly what stats they get. Then you're going to see stuff like you got in BC and Wrath, where people like you get your mages being pure glass cannons and one-shotting everyone. And that's like, if you let people actually control their stats, you get stuff like that. Something that, and this would not feel. It's where it's like, I don't know if it would feel that great, but if you had like a tree that was like, hey, you can choose between haste, mastery, or crit, and like that's like another tier of honor talents.
Right.
You could choose one of those. It wouldn't. Some people would. It would feel for the rest would be kind of like, I don't really care what's the best stat to choose.
exactly, that's what most people are going to do. Is they're going to look up what's the best stat. Okay, go with that. Boom. And to be fair, everyone who's out for customization and everything, that's what 99% of the people did when you had PvP gear that was separate. You would go on the arena ladder, look up the top player at your spec, and just copy everything. Copy his enchants, copy his pieces, piece for piece. Okay, he has the 4-piece here, got it.
Can't even do it with honor talents right now. Thanks,
no,
Armor.
you can't. That's another big problem. You need to be able to see honor talents on armor. It's stupid that you can't. But so yeah, I can see why people want to customize. Jesus Christ. But 90% of the people, if they wanted to perform the best they could with their spec, they would just go with the best stuff. Anyways, I know there's people out there who really want to be a special snowflake and just like do their own thing and maybe outperform people who are going for the month and they're doing their own thing and they're doing better. But it's a slippery slope because I feel like this template was a step in the right direction, and I feel like if they go back to the old system, it would be a mistake.
Yeah, so all of the games prior to Legion that I enjoyed PvP on have used a set template in some way or form. Some of them have been doing that for more recently changed. So it seems to be the system that works to balance things separate, have adjustable templates for them. Like even one of them has no stats period. Like, no, this game just doesn't care about that.
Right.
Yeah, I want to give you a platform here, Strimpel, because you seem to be a pretty big advocate for the single-player queue system. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. I think one thing I can praise Blizzard for, I guess, is they're putting a lot of resources into the WoW esports scene today. They had 6 open cups for both North America and Europe. They had a real official BlizzCon this year. So they really are putting in the resources, unlike before, where they want people to get into WoW PvP, specifically Arena, I guess, is what their esports focus is, and stuff like that. For those of you who don't know, Arena participation is at an all-time low. It is real bad. It's actually worse than WoD. There's many reasons for that. I think mostly because the seasons are really short now. But you guys are two people who don't really Arena that much.
It's
And looking at Arena, is there any reason as to why you would want to do it, if we're being honest?
true.
Oh, the only reason I
Transmog.
don't do it. Yeah.
Transmog,
For me, the only reason I don't do it is because I haven't found a like I don't have a partner who will do it with me consistently.
So
Oh, fuck off.
no, I mean, no, so
okay. Right,
we tried to
So,
run with Warrior
when-
Windwalker. And, like the thing is, like there are certain comps that work.
It was the dream, Tim. I don't want to hear it.
yeah. whatever.
When Arena was brought up, when Solo Queue was brought up before to the past PvD to Palinka, and for the record, we don't know who is in charge of PvP in WoW now. They don't have a public
It's Ian.
scapegoat nowadays.
We'll just go with the end.
I doubt it.
I do too.
I don't know.
It's Lord.
But
Oh my god, no.
whenever they brought up PvP, the solo queue, Holinka's answer was basically, "This is an MMO. We want a community feeling. We want you to go out and make friends and queue with them." But if you look at finding arena partner nowadays, 99% of it is just looking for group system, which is awful. I don't know if either of you probably used looking for group, but it is the worst thing in the world. Everybody claims that they are a 7-time rank 1 gladiator, and they will only take other 7-time rank 1 gladiators.
For the carry.
And if, God forbid, if you are able to get invited to a group, God forbid, if you lose more than 1 or 2 games in a row, someone will leave immediately.
Oof.
And then you just start the whole process over again. Now, that is not fun, and that is awful. And if you want more people to play your game and be invested in the game, which clearly they do because they're pouring all these resources into the esports scene, they actually need to be able to play it.
Yeah.
And right now, you cannot play it. There's a huge barrier to entry. So I don't see the downside in adding a solo queue system. And the biggest arguments against it, Holinka's argument was, a community, all that stuff. It's already not community-based when you got rid of, when you made arenas server-wide instead of, one server, one team. You had to have teams. Now, rating's tied to a character, and you can play with anyone on every server as long as they're the same faction. Before, you actually had teams. You actually had to go to the same spot to queue, which I really liked, by the way, because then you would see everyone queuing arena at that time, which was cool. But obviously, don't add that back. It's 2017. Stuff is different now. Any competitive game in 2017 has solo queue options. Any competitive game. You look at any game. Now, obviously, what makes WoW different is that it's not just arena. It is a completely separate world with all the stuff to do. That doesn't really excuse the fact that what they have is a competitive scene, because you saw it. They're putting resources in. They're spending the money. They're promoting it. They have an official website. You can go to worldofwarcraft.com right now. On the far right side in the tabs, it says esports. Boom, right there. You can see videos, standings, everything. They are putting in the resources. They want this to be a thing. So in my mind, there is absolutely no excuse for there not to be a solo queue system. Because let me walk you through a new player doing arena right now. They either whisper their friends or go into looking for group. Hey, no experience, looking for team. They say no experience, you either get someone else with no experience, or you're just sitting there for 20 minutes not finding anyone. Maybe if you're a healer, because healing in arena is something else right now. That's what people need 90% of the time. If you open up looking for group right now, go to arena, about 9 out of 10 groups will be looking for a healer. There's going to be, maybe you join a group, right? Because I'm talking about what a new player does. What's going to happen is somebody is going to go in. The MMR system hasn't been updated since Burning Crusade when arenas were introduced. You're going to get stomped. You're not going to know what's going on. Everything's going to be moving too fast, and you're never going to queue again. Because like Braille said, the only reason that a casual player, not casual, just even a mythic raider would have incentive to do arena is the transmog, which is 2k rating, which is on the harder side of things.
Yeah.
So you're going to get stomped at 1400 rating, which isn't even close to 2k, and be like, well, this is pointless. Why am I even doing this? There's no point. If you have a solo queue system that is separate from that, you can actually practice the game and get better at the game without having to have two separate people or one other separate person chooses a mess right now. I won't even get into that. At the same time, because they've said before they balance the game around 3v3 in PvP. That's their pinnacle. That's what their esport is. That's what they balance around. 3 versus 3 arena. 2 DPS, 1 healer, kill someone. That's the goal. So I've been talking you out, so I'm gonna let someone else talk. Yeah, go for it.
Actually, I actually wanted to prompt you into some more questions. What? And I actually have some answers to these questions myself, so it's kind of leading. But what do you see that are preventing them from adding solo queue, and what solutions do you think there can be at? I think let me ask and answer the one I know of. Our MMR's system's not updated. My answer to that is you have you have 3. Yeah, you got one's an RTS, one's a MOBA, and one's a shooter. But they all have fairly robust and solid MMR systems. Talk to the team.
Yeah, I think Heroes MMR is pretty good too, though. I cut out there. I said I think Heroes MMR is pretty good too, though. I've consistently gone win one, lose one, win one, lose one.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's 3 games: the RTS, the MOBA, and the.
Oh, my bad. I didn't hear that.
I can pick the obvious answer here and say not enough people play Arena, so they don't want to devote the resources to completely overhauling it, because I think it would take a lot of work to completely overhaul the Arena system that hasn't been updated since Burning Crusade. There was a slight upgrade in MOP where they made it rating attached to the character instead of teams, but it still worked the exact same way. The rewards are the exact same way. It's antiquated titles you get for a certain percentage that aren't visible at all in the in-game client. I'm honestly so for solo queue, it's hard to think of a con. It really is for me. And I'd be happy to hear if you guys had
for cons. I'm asking for things that are standing in the way.
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about this one.
So for interesting thoughts on say that, like, from what Bray and I experienced when we did our little foray into 2v2, it was either me running and this may be different now that you've gotten more solid on survival play. I'd like to go back in there with your survival hunter, but if he was running on his warrior, it was kind of that thing where it's like I would choose a target and kill him, but if we were running, if perchance they were running double, like a Frost Death Knight and what was that combo that we hated? Frost Death Knight, Frost Mage, I think just wrecked us.
Anything with a healer?
Like Frost Death Knight, it was just like, because eventually they would get me down, and then Bray couldn't do enough damage as a warrior, and just okay, he's eventually down. If it was double DPS, we won almost every one, and we never ran into another tank queuing with us. So
it's great,
right?
So well, it was just like I agree. Like 2v2 is just because you can't balance around healers and tanks, really. Truthfully.
No, and I'm going to segue here into basically my problem with PvP right now in general. Solo queue they should add. I'm sorry I didn't answer your question, but they need to add it, and they need to add it pronto. But I think the biggest problem right now with WoW PvP is cooldowns do way too much damage, and without cooldowns, you don't do enough damage. And what that creates is just really stale gameplay.
Yeah, no.
Because you guys probably didn't watch the BlizzCon tournament or any tournaments, but the games went a pretty long time, and the reason for that is the skill of WoW PvP and Arena is you need to match their cooldowns with your defensive cooldowns. So if they're popping everything on you, you need to make sure that you pop an appropriate cooldown so you do not die during it. And it's important to not overlap other cooldowns with your healer. So let's say you have like a Demon Hunter on your team and you're a Shaman. You got 2 melee DPS popping everything on you. The Demon Hunter can Chaos Nova and stun them both, and that way you don't have to Astral Shift, so you save that cooldown for the next time they do that. Now, the very top level of WoW PvP, they can do that flawlessly, just like without thinking about it, without even talking to their teammates. So you see games going to deep dampening, and for those of you who don't know what dampening is, basically the longer the game goes, the less healing does, so somebody eventually has to win. So you saw a lot of games being decided by which healer ran out of mana first, or which team just did way too much damage that eventually got too high in dampening and they just couldn't heal through it. Cooldowns or not. But the problem with this like very cooldown reliant game is if you're new and you queue into 2v2, you get a Frost DK. He runs in there, he pops Pillar of Ice, he obliterates 3 times, and he Cinder Ghosts you. You're dead. That's it. You're dead, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And God forbid you've got a Demon Hunter with him because you're just not going to be able to move.
Exactly. So
Even if you
it's
blow your
such a
cooldowns.
turnoff because you die so quickly. But at the same time, and this is actually impressive, when they don't have that cooldowns and there is a healer on their team, you're not killing anyone. They're immortal. You either need a really big CC chain or they're not dying at all. The healer will heal through it no matter what. So that's why comps in Arena are around 2 things right now. It's either a comp that does really good CC with good burst, so like Rogue Mage or any Hunter comp really, who can trap the healer and then go hard on a DPS, or Rogues can do 3 cheap shots, or Pharaohs can stun someone 3 times in Incarnation, and then Blood Elves are the most popular in PvP right now because of Blood Elf silence.
Yep.
You stun someone, you Blood Elf silence them out, they can't do anything, it's 6 seconds lockdown, boom, they're dead. So what you see there is new people being turned off, because if you're not good at the game and you don't know how to counter that, you run in to someone who is good at the game, they cheap shot you 3 times, they Blood Elf silence you, you die without even being able to press a button. Now, what that seems like is, hey, you know, I can't really counter that. What am I supposed to do? That's not fun. That doesn't have counterplay. You know, MOBAs, obvious counterplay. Dodge skill shots, land skill shots. Shooters, obvious counterplay. Overwatch, aim. You can aim, you don't win. You aim, you win. Simple. You know, you see, oh, I see what I could have done better. Well, it's really hard to see what you can do better. And then, on the other side of that, the same thing, you pop in your cooldowns, the healer uses it correctly, he trinkets, or he bubbles, or he uses the correct thing, you're now going to be whacking at someone for a minute, and you cannot kill them. You might land an occasional interrupt, it doesn't matter, he'll get locked out for 4 seconds, he'll get himself back to full health, you can't kill him without cooldowns. So, like I said, it's actually kind of impressive how they made the game way too much damage, and not enough damage at the same time. And
I think my biggest thing, this is going back years before, like my first foray into Arena, and this was just, it was so frustrating. Bait out the long CC, up your trinket, and immediately get CC again. And it was like, yeah, resilience was a thing, but it still didn't matter. Like, you can't help it, like, your sheep, you popped in on sheep, well, cheap shot. And now the Rogue and Mage are going to turn on your other teammate, who in my case was a mage, and blow them up.
And you'll see comps evolve around that gameplay, because it will naturally happen in a meta will form where a meta evolves around the gameplay, where the meta right now is basically Windwalker, Warrior, anything. Usually with a DK or some other thing that does high consistent damage. Because what those have is the Mortal Strike effect, where healing is reduced by 25%. And what they'll do is they'll just ride the same target the whole game without really coordinating CC chains or doing any of the things where you would see as, like, I guess, skillful and WoW. And eventually the healing reduction, the dampening, and everything else will be too much, and someone will just die to doing a PV rotation on a moving target.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. That's not fun at all. And it's rough. So, I mean, you could even look at the BlizzCon, the championship. It was basically a Hunter, Demon Hunter, or Hunter Pharaoh they tried versus Arcane Mage Windwalker. And the entire Arcane Mage Windwalker's plan with the rest of Druid was just to stall, and that's what they did. They stalled 4 games in a row.
I mean, I like playing my Windwalker in PvP because it's the only class I feel like I actually have counterplay options, in the sense of I know how to get away and I know how to keep myself alive through their burst.
So
Any other
the
class,
Hunter Cleave
I just feel like I can't do anything.
It relies on landing consistent traps on the healers along with doing consistent damage on a DPS target, so they eventually fall on a CC. What the Arcane Windwalker did is they just kited. They get a trap, guess what? They pour it away, they do double blink away. Arcane Mage actually has 3 blinks. They can blink once, they can blink twice, and then they can go back to the spot where they previously blinked. So you actually saw him blink halfway across the map, wait for them to get to him, and then use his button to go all the way back to the other side of the map. He's gone. You can't touch him.
That's counterplayable, though.
That is counterplay. Yes, but the thing is
that one is actually, it can be stopped. But yeah, I get it. Like, to stop that, you have to split up. Well, if you split up, you've isolated yourself as a kill target.
Right, and it's It's frustrating. It's I don't know what else to say about it. It's rough because you can't in WoW PvP you can't really tell when anyone does anything impressive. It doesn't when people are doing things impressive, it just feels like they're doing things that are broken. It's not fun. It's not fun right now. It can be improved on a lot. They need to nerf the amount of cooldowns people do, but also buff the consistent damage people do. Then the decisions and the actions that happen throughout the game will actually affect the outcome. Because right now, it doesn't really matter if you land an interrupts or land a really cool CC or kite someone, because that warrior X comp, if they just connect to you in a stun and you run out of cooldowns and they get their 1 minute cooldown back, Battle Cry or Pillar of Frost or Serenity or Earth, Wind, Fire back, short cooldowns, you're dead.
I think
So,
I think they have a viable format to fix these problems with, though. Like with Legion, they introduced the PvP talent system via Prestige, where you level up in PvP with the amount of honor you get. If you haven't seen it, that's what it is. And then you get essentially cosmetic rewards when you get higher and higher in the levels. But to me, that seems like if you're going to do number changes that are only going to affect PvP, that's the system you can use to make those number changes, so that maybe you can sacrifice some of your cooldown's power to give yourself some more survivability. And the goal would honestly be to try to even out the peaks, the peaks and troughs or whatever. You want to even it out to become more of a linear line, because that actually is what creates the more engaging PvP play, where your rotation matters over just surviving through cooldowns. To me, that's what they should try to work towards with the talent system, because and this is going to stream back or kind of go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this podcast, was the news. One of the questions he got in the Q&A this past week was about the talent system going into Battle for Azeroth and how that's going to work. And they flat out, well, they didn't flat out say it, but they may as well have just said they don't know. They don't know what they're going to do with PvP going into Battle for Azeroth with the talent system, if you're going to just keep prestiging up, or if, because, I mean, what is the cap right now? 18 is the highest? 20? Something like that?
They did address one of the problems with it, which is at the beginning of PvP, you go in first. All you've got is your trinket.
yeah.
8% difference by stats from your eye level, but those talents are worth more than 8%. Some of them.
Right.
Oh, the bottom one for Windwalker is just insane. Like, let me stun someone for 6 seconds whenever I Fist of Fury, which is, by the way, like 18-second cooldown.
Yep. They initially, when honor talents were introduced, it was if you prestige, you lose all the talents and you have to do it over again. That was seen as a big mistake extremely quickly, and they made it so prestiging, which is kind of like Overwatch leveling, where it's just kind of like, oh, hey, that guy's a really high level. That's kind of cool. He grinded for that. He plays this game a lot. I think that is the way to go about it. I like the system, and I hope they keep it, just for the sake of it's the new honor system, I guess, because the old honor system went through many iterations, obviously in vanilla with getting titles, and then in Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King with it buying gear and stuff like that. I think the prestige system in general was good. I think attaching the talents to it was bad. I think it's not fun. Let's say I just leveled a hunter to do jungle cleave with the feral druid, and I had to just grind BGs for a week pretty much, just so I could actually start playing arena with them, so I can actually have all the talents and be effective. That's not fun, and they admitted it was a mistake in BlizzCon, and they admitted it was a mistake halfway through Legion when they made the first talents, so 1 through 50 of the honor leveling, cost half as much as it normally does. So I hope they scrap. It does. It took me a week, yeah. So I hope they scrap the talent locked behind the grinding, but I hope they keep the incentives. Oh God, I don't know why I keep trying to say this word when I can't say it. I hope they keep the reason to keep doing PvP, because it's nice, to queue up for a battleground and have a reason to be there.
It's nice for me to click on someone and I see next to their, when I'm using default UI, when I see their portrait having the symbol showing, hey, they've prestiged X number of times,
Right.
Now there's like in Overwatch, you run into someone with a gold border, and you're like, holy shit, they have no life.
Yeah, and it's the same effect here. You know,
Now, to be honest, yeah, it is cool, but you'll run into you may run into someone, you're like, oh wow, they're really high prestige, and then you just stomp them, and you're like, oh, they just played too much. Which is also
exactly, and
gonna be fun.
that's what it should mean because I'll kind of segue this into something else. Most of I say there's not a lot of people playing PvP. There's still a ton of people who queue for random battlegrounds. Random battlegrounds get a ton of action, and it's like the most popular thing besides
there's
like
a reason
dungeons and random
alone.
dungeons.
Do you by any chance know how many people queue for skirmish? Because that is solo queue.
Right, and nobody queues for skirmish.
But people like random battlegrounds also solo queue, and people do queue for those. Skirmish, I've actually seen it. It usually takes me about 5 minutes to find for a queue to pop in skirmishes for me. But that's 2s and 3s, so.
Yeah. And I think at some point, and I know they're putting all this resources into Arena and stuff like that, they need to realize that they made a mistake, and the only reason WoW would ever be interesting to watch is if it's objective based. And I think they need to transition their resources from, arenas and arenas giving all the cosmetic awards to battlegrounds and to a solo queue battleground system.
Now, here's a question: how would you feel? And that this is kind of the brawl last week.
Yes,
was
the 6 versus 6.
So it's 6v6 for battlegrounds. How would you feel about that for a new rank?
See, that's the biggest thing keeping RPGs from being an esport right now is 10 versus 10 is way too big. You can't have 10 people versus 10 people in like an esports arena fighting off each other. It's just too much stuff going on.
Whereas we've seen with Overwatch, 6v6 is a
6
very
versus 6.
solid.
It's a valid format.
You can run a tank. You can you'll start getting the double tank, double healer meta, or you'll get double healer, triple DPS, single tank. You'll get
It's
in those metas, but I actually would be really excited to see a 6v6 mode. And here's actually one of my hopes with PvP, and I don't know if because brawls were not a Hollow Link thing, were they?
They were like the last thing you did.
I wonder if that may have been the person following them, but like as you can kind of say, brawls is a great way to test things out in a environment and kind of see what the interest is. Because that, like, if you get the positive feedback from that, like, that's where they can go. And so, interested in seeing PvP, go check out the brawls when they're in town, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I think that's what the arena one, like the massive 10v10 arena one, is trying to get people interested in just the pure combat side of PvP. And like, hey, go join arenas because this is all you get to do now. That is you do when you're in that one. And they take a lot less time.
And I think 6v6 Battlegrounds, if they went that way back in Burning Crusade, I think WoW PvP would be a lot more prominent than it is right now with Arena. Just because of the reason that I mentioned before, where if you're not good at Arena, you don't know what's going on, it doesn't feel like you're being outplayed, it just feels like the game's broken. So, if there's an objective tied behind it, that rogue can cheap shot you 3 times and then silence you and you're dead, but at the same time you had 5 other teammates standing around fighting other people instead of helping you who's doing the objective, and it actually has a reason, and you say, hey, this team is playing the objective better, they're targeting the same people better, they're doing things more coherently as a team, and it's real easy to see when you have an objective what you're doing wrong versus what they're doing wrong. Where in Arena, specifically watching it, you can't really tell what's going on and what team's doing impressive thing and what team's not, because you just see a bunch of health bars going up and down, and like, I don't know what's happening, but eventually a health bar goes to 0 and someone dies and they cheer. Cool. Not that exciting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've played, like, PvP was what got me into WoW initially. And World PvP, because I actually enjoy the 1v1s more than anything. 66 objective ranked solo queue play interests me so much because they would actually have to tweak a lot of battlegrounds to make it feel right, honestly. But
Almost
being
all of
able
them.
like solo defend 1v1 against someone is just the most satisfying thing for me. Like being able to play someone, back in my first class was a Frostmate, and I just love once BC came out with Ice Lance, pulling off shadow combos on people. The uncatchable mage that was the kind of the status quo that day of Frostmate. You're just going to be kited the entire time. Defending against is good. Sorry.
Yeah, and like
But there's back then, like 1v1s are easy to follow. But you don't get that in arena, and that's I don't know. Like I actually enjoyed. Like I would sit outside organizing duels.
right.
So from an esports perspective, like it's the 1v1, and again, like I think I'm kind of trying to be like, hey, yeah, let's do 6v6, even though it's far off in the future. But like you get those kind of experience where you see like, oh, they got two rogues who ran into each other in the open field, or 1v1 each other. Help them, or I don't know.
Exactly, it'd be a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like you would have a hunter sitting a base in, let's say, a Wrathy base, and a rogue comes up and tries to ninjas them. He stabs them, gets out in a flare. The pet attacks them. This thing doesn't work, and then all of a sudden you have a rogue versus hunter 1v1, while the rest of the team is all fighting for control of blacksmith. Like that's exciting to watch. That's fun. Like, I just wish they went in that direction instead of arena, and the reason why arena skirmishes get almost no one, but random battlegrounds get a lot of people, is because battlegrounds are just more fun and they're easier to get into. It's easier to see what you're doing wrong. As you guys can probably tell, if you ever queued up for a random battleground, there will be someone telling you what you're doing wrong 24/7.
Usually
so
wrong.
you'll probably know that. They're usually always wrong too. But
you should be doing this. That's the opposite thing we should be doing.
You know, Strimp, whenever you were talking about having objective based and how interesting that'd be to watch, I couldn't help but like realize that you were basically describing PvP Island excursions as they've been presented to us so far.
right, yeah, and that is a little exciting because that is the 3 versus 3 format, which is the most popular arena format. So that will be interesting to see. I have a friend who basically only does arena. When they saw that, they were like, "Hey, we should do that too. That looks like fun."
It does. I'm pretty excited for it.
It looks like fun. It looks like kind of like a 3v3 battleground with some more things mixed in there. So that will be interesting. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point. I don't know what it's going to look like. They didn't reveal too much on it. If you're going to get like a ranked format of that or not, but
Right.
we'll see. Basically, they're designing a UI around that, which is like playing PvP without actually playing PvP.
Yeah.
Which is very odd, because they described it like you were going to design an NPC in a UI who can polymorph you, mount up, and run away.
Yeah, well,
like,
basically to me,
a player.
So here's how I interpret that as: we made this really cool system because it's in development. We've only been able to test it with PvP, and we realized that PvP is not our main demographic. Shit.
that's really how it came across. That's really how it came across.
In order to test that, they needed to have six people, because it would be so hard to test a faulty AI if you're trying just to design it from the ground up. You have to have people involved. So it was built from a PvP perspective, and then they're like, "Oh, we should make this PvE instead."
Yeah. The whole expansion is kind of like that, because it's all PvP themed, Horde versus Alliance, and yet they have to make it all PvE because, like we said, 90% of the player base only PvEs. Maybe daps their foot in a random battleground once in a while, and that's it. So, and I can't really blame them when arena is the main focus. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
I just some of the battlegrounds. So here's something that we all kind of brought up when I brought it with all my friends, like Alterac Valley ever when it's during pre-patch.
Yes.
Because
you can't just rush the base.
You can't just rush. And it's just like the days of PvP that's just like, that's when I like queuing for random battlegrounds, when it feels that's the one battleground that actually can fight this epic battle, especially when you can't just zerg down things. They don't just leave that scale in place.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. Did I just? Sorry,
No,
I'm
no,
just
I
worried
gotcha.
about.
it's rough. I think a lot of it is, the stuff where I said earlier where cooldowns are too big and consistent damage is not, also applies to random battlegrounds as well. If you are in a random battleground without communication and they have 2 healers and you have 1, you're pretty much going to lose because there's no coordination to CC 1 healer and everyone piles on the other one. You usually have like the Affliction Lock who's just trying to dot everyone up, the DK who's just swinging at anything that's nearest to him, which is usually like a tank spec or something like that. And so nothing really dies with the way healers are outside of cooldowns. And I'm bringing this up again because Braille mentioned something a while ago, and I'm getting into it again. Sorry, I tend to rant a lot
You're fine.
about how things can be tuned to make that different. But I think a lot of it is actually comes down to class design in Legion and how they removed a lot of buttons to make it more crisp and clean. Because I like what they did with Legion. They did prune a lot. I'm not really a fan of that. But what they did is they made every single spec feel different from one another. So that's nice, but at the same time, that just creates kind of like stale gameplay in Arena because in like Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm, there was like a kind of barrier to entry in Arena in the sense that you could tell a really good player apart from a bad one because you would have all these really weird spells. For example, you would have let's say you were playing like Mage Barrel, it's a really crude example, and the enemy team is playing with a Resto Druid. If you go to polymorph that Resto Druid and they go into an animal form so they cannot be polymorphed, Druids used to have a spell called Hibernation, which probably a lot of people don't know about anymore, where it would put a beast to sleep. Now, Druid in animal form would count as a beast. God, I'm ranting like crazy here. It's totally off topic. But
It was great.
It would put an animal form to sleep for 8 seconds, effectively a polymorph. So they would bait that out, get the Druid to go into it, and the Pharaoh would already be precasting Hibernate, and that Druid would be hibernated. And if you're that Resto Druid, guess what you're thinking? Holy crap, these guys are good. They just did that to me. That's insane. There is nothing like that in Legion at all.
It's true.
No, I remember having to rank 1 Frostbolt and rank 1 Fire,
yes.
like all these rank 1 spells on my bar, specifically for stuff like, Grounding Tome and stuff. I need to use rank 1 because I'm not going to waste them now. Oh, there's a Warrior's Reflection. Oh, I just need a Snare right now, and rank 1 has a 1 second cast versus the 1.5.
Yes. Okay.
Stuff
and
like
I
that
can
was just
apply
insane.
this to my very own class, Enhancement Shaman. I played Purbo and Wad. Wad also did an ability prune, but it wasn't as bad as Legion. My favorite thing about Enhance is it had Grounding Totem, Wind Shear, and Tremor Totem. So I fought teams that would try to CC my healer, and I was the ultimate anti-CC person out there. You try to polymorph, Grounding. Oh, you feared him? Tremor. I reacted like that. I got rid of it immediately, and it was impressive. It separated me from other shamans because I could focus on someone I'm not attacking. I could focus on their mage, look at what he's doing. At the same time, I'm focusing on killing someone, see they're casting polymorph from my healer, and ground it. They pruned both those spells. And do you know why they pruned both those spells? Because they did nothing in PvE. They did nothing in a rating scheme. Grounding Totem, Tremor Totem did absolutely nothing for player versus environment and rating. It added nothing. So they looked at all the spells that didn't do anything, and they said, we need to make this game more fluent, make spells feel more impactful, and get rid of bloat like that off the bars. So they chose those 2 spells, and they got rid of them.
Yeah.
So just little stuff like that over time.
I remember running into so many people with Grounding Totem bots and kick bots in Warlord.
Yeah, okay. That's a whole different story. Yeah, that's a different
having a straight up spell that was easily botted like shit like that. It's like, yeah, they can't ever get rid of kickbots and stuff. But
right, and well, they discontinued Honor Bunny, so that's cool. So they did kind of do that, but so you're right. We're like
how they locked down the client finally with encrypting. It's a little bit harder to deal with it with bots.
Yeah, they can scale it to make it better, so where cooldowns don't just destroy someone who doesn't know what they're doing in 1 second and then unable to kill a healer who does know what he's doing outside of that. But a big part of it is not so much that it's mostly the fact that red paladins have 4 buttons and a bob instead of freedoms. They had 2 Hands of Sacrifices that would clear magical effects. They had all this utility that they got rid of in Legion because it didn't bring anything to the raiding and Mythic Dungeon scene, and they didn't want it on bars so people wouldn't get confused, so the spec would be more distinct and do their own thing. So that's really where PvP suffers. And to be fair, they brought some of them back as honor talents, but not all of them. So it's rough. So
I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. It's kind of like removed sleep and or old days. It was just removing fear and sleep, if I remember correctly.
I mean, Druids even had a soothe, and they would like dispel warriors and rage.
That was just frustrating. It's like, oh, here's a spell that's like, I'm a shaman, you're a warlock, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like grounding, I would actually be more okay with them just removing Tremor Totem and just keeping grounding totem, because Tremor Totem was more like
Tremor. Okay, yes, because Tremor Totem was reactive, or grounding totem was proactive, and there's a difference there.
Yeah,
because if you have something that's me neither, and that's why paladins have reactive gameplay.
It's healers kind of has to be reactive, just because you get the proactive healer type.
Well,
you end up with 2 problems. Like, either they have to be like, if you feel like you can't get through the damage because the healers just constantly keep
and okay, that exists too. It's called the Resto Druid, and they're either really broken or not good at all, and that's the reason why, because they don't know how to balance a proactive healer. Yeah, because if you have a proactive healer, if they're really, really good at it, you can't really beat it. It's unstoppable, because if they know exactly what they're doing, if you look in the direction they full hop themselves and go into bear form before you can even touch them, they're gods. So what they do is they just nerf their hots, and then they're bad. So there's no real in between there. It's kind of tough to achieve that. So yeah,
you got it. Like, and it, like with other games, like reactive healers are just kind of how it has to play in PvP, because otherwise it feels painful.
Right. Which
to fight against.
Which I said like an hour ago.
There's purges, and then it feels painful as well.
Right.
Because then at that point, like, as I remember, what was it? Where the only we would bring a shaman along was for purge. Your job is to purge. I'm the mage. I do the damage. The druid's the healer. You're just the purge bot.
You see, like, class identity and stuff like that was nice too, though. Because nowadays, the most utility you'll get is if you are a melee cleave and you don't have Mortal Strike, it's not going to work. So you need a warrior for Mortal Strike, or a hunter for Mortal Strike, or a Windwalker for Mortal Strike. Otherwise, you need a lot of CC to kill anything. But I liked little things like that, where you said, like, oh, if he's a Warlock and you're a Shaman, you have Tremor, and they're just screwed. Even more extreme, Warriors, when Berserker away just 30 seconds, good luck, like, ever getting a Warlock to kill you when you could stick on them the entire time and they can't fear you. I liked little things like that. It did provide, like, rock, paper, scissors, which has kind of been the whole thing of Arena since day one it was ever introduced. It's rock, paper, scissors, this comp beats this comp, this comp beats this comp. But when you remove all those special things and you just make it about damage, you pick something with an easy DPS rotation. If it's really strong right now, like Frost DKs, I can't tell the difference between a 2k Frost DK and Mez, who's like rank 1 went to BlizzCon Frost DK. You cannot tell the difference because there's nothing special they can do. Because they can both perform that DPS, that rotation, the same as any other Frost DK, and the Frost DK's only job is to do damage. So it's not great, and it's not really Arena's fault, and there's nothing they can really do with the templates about it. It's just the way they decided to go with the class design in Legion. I'm not saying I don't like the pruning from a PvP perspective. I obviously don't like it. It's nice in the sense that every spec feels different from each other, but that's really the core problem, rather than Blizzard not nerfing and buffing XYZ. It's more of a core gameplay problem than it is, just like, oh, why don't you just nerf Frost DK by 10% and that will solve everything. It will not solve much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be another class for it.
I have
exactly
a question. Looking at this is something I thought of a little while back. Looking at the switch they're putting in for World PvP, that, when you're in a big city, you're going to be able to switch to PvP or PvE server, blah, blah, blah. When are we going to get an RP switch?
I mean, RP servers are already designed for that.
Yeah.
And they have shown, in
Oh,
areas.
my God. You try to make a joke.
Nope. I got to take.
Thank you, Strimpel, for the pity laugh. Fuck you guys.
I really liked how they got rid of cross-realm zoning for RP servers.
Yeah, I did too.
And there was actually a bit of controversy because I don't know if you guys have heard of Project 60 going around or not.
No.
Yeah, I have.
Basically, a bunch of popular streamers got really excited at Vanilla WoW, and they did something on Project 60 on Moonguard. And what it is basically you level like it's vanilla with no mounts until like level 60 and no heirlooms, no anything like that. And you act like it's vanilla in Legion. I guess a bunch of streamers were streaming and got really popular. But they chose Moonguard because it's a role-playing realm, and so they can see everyone else doing Project 60 at the same time. The RPers got really upset because I don't know if you know the typical Twitch TV fan of a WoW streamer, but they're usually all 16-year-olds who spam really bad memes that are very toxic.
That's not
so
our
they
fans, right?
Also seems to like the people who post on the forums about how vanilla is best game ever. And
exactly. So all those people influxed into Moonguard RP servers and just kind of overtook it with a bunch of negativity, and now everyone's complaining about how it ruins the RP server and all that stuff. I know you were just joking about RP only servers, but that was an interesting bit of controversy that happened this week.
That is interesting. And with that tidbit of interest, we're coming up on the end. Before we end, I would like to ask Strimpel, my lad, my friend, what do you got planned going on this week? You got anything going on your channel? I know you got a Twitch channel. Go ahead and plug yourself a bit here.
No, I don't really stream unless I'm very drunk.
Oh, yes. That's the best way to stream.
So I kind of just turned it on and don't remember much about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
Skip those archived videos.
I'll stream some some Hunter gameplay, some Jungle Cleave. Hunter's fun. I've been having fun with Hunter lately because it's better than Enhanced, because Enhanced it's just who does the most damage. Hunter, I can actually land traps. I've been ranting for an hour now, but there's things you can do that differentiate you from other hunters by doing cool ways to land your traps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm mostly just gonna chill during Thanksgiving break.
Yeah,
I still have school, so that's not very fun.
That's not.
I apologize for overtaking this podcast for the last hour and a half and ranting about PvP nonstop, even though probably most viewers don't even care about PvP, and that's perfectly understandable. You probably don't care because of all the reasons I mentioned tonight, though, and those are very...
That's true. The man has a
so
point.
If you want to have fun PvP, go download Guild Wars 2.
Or Overwatch, or Heroes of the Storm, or something that actually rewards objective gameplay and not just doing more damage than the other person.
News alert. Our boy Faye, he has his own Twitch channel, and he's been using it. You got anything going on Twitch this week, Faye?
I might go into the wonderful world of pugs and do Tomb Heroic.
Oh, yeah. Let me know if you do that. I might help you out. What are your guys' Twitch addresses for your little website thing, the wwws?
Mine is just twitch.tv/Strimpel, same as my name.
STRIMPAL.
Yep, you'll see me be drunk. Real fun.
It'll be great. What about you, Faye?
/thisfay.
Twitch.tv/thisfay. There you go. You guys can check them out. As far as I'm concerned, I am doing 4 days of Fallout after this. Oh, there we go. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. My mic's a little shitty tonight. Everything's a little shitty tonight. Feeling bad. Connection's been pretty rough, but we're getting through it. But as I was saying, for me, I'm going to be doing 4 days of Fallout this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time, somewhere in there, I'll be starting up the old Fallout. And we're going to continue the adventures of Pinch and Squeal, and he's going to save the world But you can see that at twitch.tv/Ultivia, Ultivia. Also, look up Ultivia on YouTube. Help me get to 100 subs. I've got all of the podcast episodes over there, as well as there's going to be some content coming out soon, hopefully, because I've been working on being able to afford a video editor, which means that even the podcasts might get a little better. Tonight, we are going to leave you with a song I promised you last week when I had a question, and I've gotten one since, about where our intro song comes from. I'm going to go ahead and mute us here on the chat and play the song out. I want to thank everybody for watching. We will be back here next week, same time, for a special Thanksgiving episode of No Loot Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. West Coast U.S. times. If you're somewhere else in the world, I can't help you. But again, thank you all for watching. And this song is called I Am Nightmare. And I actually sang this song, so hope you enjoy it.